Hello and welcome to Persian-ish cooking. Today I'm making quince jam, which is called Morraba Beh. What is a quince, you ask? This is a quince. This is a really large quince. They're not usually this big. This is a slightly smaller quince. They're not very prominent in the US. You can buy them in warmer climates like California. They're really popular in Iran, in Greece, I think a little in Turkey. Basically, they are kind of like pears. They're a fall fruit. They're something kind of like a pear or an apple. Do not bite into these. It's like biting into a potato. It is, they do not taste good without sugar. So they need to be cooked down so they're softened, and they need a little sweetness to them. So we're just gonna make a jam. It is not like a traditional American jam. American jams are mushed. This is more like it's almost like a poached pear. You want it to cook evenly, obviously. If you do like smaller cuts, they're going to take a shorter amount of time to cook, and then your longer cuts are going to be basically raw at that point. So you want to make sure whatever cut you choose, you're consistent throughout. You can choose between three different types of cuts, and they are, for anyone who speaks Farsi, who knows these cuts, they're varaghi, paroi portugal, and negini. So the first one is slivered. The next one is a small round, and that's the one I'm going to do. And you can also cube them. But yeah, we're doing small rounds. Paroi portugal is like, it literally means orange pieces. So think of an orange that's been cut, like not even cut, like you just cut the top off and you take out a piece. That's kind of the cut. So those are the small rounds that we're gonna have on here. So let's get started. This is what it looks like on the inside. It basically looks like an apple, so we have to core it. I keep my seeds. I use it for other things. So I finished slicing these. As you can see, it kind of looks like a sliced apple, basically. This is the paroi portugal, the orange slice cut. This is a little too big to fit into my jam jars, so I'm going to cut them maybe in half. So this is everything sliced. I went ahead and cut them in half. The most important thing is that they are somewhat consistent in the width of the cut. I went ahead and poured a little bit of lemon juice on this to prevent browning. And the next step is to add the sugar. You want an equal part sugar and beh and quince in terms of weight. So since I did 2 pounds of quince, I'm going to add 2 pounds of sugar. So yes, I had to switch pots because that mountain was just way too high. I'm going to add water now. I'm going to add 3 1/4 cups of water to this. So now we're going to put this on high and bring it to a boil. And after it boils, we will season it so that it tastes like fall. As you can see, it's now boiling. Yay. The lid was off the entire time for this portion. So now we're going to season it. Traditionally, people don't use ground cinnamon to season this dish. Ground cinnamon is known to brown the beh, like it leaves stains on the actual quince. And so for about 1.5 pounds of quince, you're going to throw in 1 cinnamon stick. I have 2 pounds here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw in this 1 cinnamon stick. There. And then I have 2 cardamom pods, which I've crushed. And I'm going to add that as extra seasoning. I think it'll be enough. It might be slightly under seasoned, but I think it'll be fine. So at this point, we're going to turn it down to low. We're going to put the lid on and we're going to let it simmer for an hour, somewhere between 60 and 90 minutes it needs to simmer. In the meantime, if you have dried limes, and these are really easy to make at home, you can buy them at the store, at the Persian store. Sadaf sells them, I believe. I make mine in the oven. You just dry them out. I forget the exact temperature. It's like 125, or I'd have to look it up. But you leave them in the oven at a very low temp for a couple hours, and they dry really easily. You can also leave them outside. I don't know. I assume they attract animals or something, so I don't do mine outside. But I have some hot water or warm water, and I'm gonna drop in two dried limes, and they're just going to sit here for about the next hour or so. If you don't have dried limes, just use lime juice. If you're going to use lime juice, you add it at the end. It's going to be 2 tablespoons, maybe 3 tablespoons of lime juice. So it's been an hour now. I'm just going to take the lid off. Ooh, yay, we have a nice color. I'm going to check the consistency. So now that you know, it's obviously boiling still. So it's going to be a lot more liquid now than it will be when it's cooled. It's such a nice sweet and sour. That was not me checking the consistency, by the way. All right, I'm going to give it half an hour more and check up on it again. Okay, so it's been about half an hour. I'm going to take the lid off. It has a beautiful color. It has a really good aroma too. You can see what I meant when I said it was kind of like a poached pear. This is obviously still watery because it's still hot, but we can kind of break through the quince with a spoon. We can cut through it. So it's close to done. Well, it's close to the next phase. So right now, I am going to add a little acid to this so that it helps with the preservation. I'm going to add my rehydrated limes. Right, so I'm going to add 2 of these, and I'll let it sit for another half an hour or so. I'm not sure. So if you're going to do just lime juice, which is fine, I would probably wait closer to the end. So lime and lemon, if you cook them too much, they turn a food bitter. So you don't, like, this will give off a little bit of the juice at a time. And so it's not really going to be bitter once the acid comes out. But if you actually pour in lemon or lime juice too early in a dish, it will turn bitter. So I'm just gonna put the lid on. It's still on low. I'm gonna give it another half hour. Okay, so it's been about half an hour. I could let it sit for another 15 minutes or so. I think it's doing pretty well. It's still watery, but once it cools down a little, it'll get better. Let's see. The limes have added a nice depth of flavor, a bit of, I don't know, earthiness, I guess. And we already tested cutting these, right? Using the spoon to actually cut them into pieces, and it was fine. I used a fairly thick piece last time. I did forget to say, if you're doing lime juice instead of dried limes, you're gonna need maybe 2.5 tablespoons for this recipe. Like if you're doing about a pound and a half of quince, I would do 2 tablespoons of lime. This is about 2 pounds. So just a little more than that, maybe 2.25 tablespoons should be sufficient. It tastes so good.
I put them in little jars and I still had a whole bunch left over. Um, Once you put the lids on these, you need a little room for them to expand, possibly, but you can store them in the freezer or the fridge. Obviously, the freezer would be longer term, but these have a good amount of citric acid, so they'll last in the fridge for a while. Usually, Iranians have this with breakfast, so bread and cheese, like pita bread, or there are a whole bunch of different types of breads, but bread and a cheese, like a feta, Bulgarian feta cheese, or some French cheese or something, um, and some tea and some Morraba Beh. When I was in Athens. They had this as a froyo topping, which was amazing. They had this, and they had another thing we have in Iran is sour cherries. They had a sour cherry syrup also as a froyo topping. So maybe you can pour this on some ice cream or some frozen yogurt, or pour it in your yogurt and see what you think. Anyway, enjoy.
Okay, so there you have it, Morraba Beh, which is quince jam. I hope you enjoy and you love making it for yourself.